In this video, I share with you the Highlands Kickstarter from DecoQuest. But before we get into today's video, just want to give a quick shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. I love all of you because you make this channel what it is. And I want to share this past month's GGGGs. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this past month of February of 2023, Roy R. received the $50 Terrainify credit. Muggs and Daniel W. received $25 credits towards LV427. Alex I. and Bart D. received the $40 Sunken Citadel pledge. Terrainaholic received a pledge from the Mountain City of Gunbar Kickstarter. Maria Galarza received the printed and painted dice tower from the Mountain City of Gunbar Kickstarter. Carlos M. and Vincenzo F. received a pledge to the Page to Adventure Kickstarter. Jordan M. received the printed and painted Blacksmith Shop. William R. and El Gordo 555 received a $50 and $14 pledge to the Brave Sun Kickstarter. And finally, Brian V. received $100 to go towards the Greendale and Grimdale Kickstarter that is happening right now. And for this month of March of 2023, this printed and painted set from the Highlands Rebellion Kickstarter will be one of the gratitude gifts. We also continue to have $50 towards Terrainify, where they provide STL files or will 3D print it for you or even paint and flock the terrain. We also have two $25 credits going towards LV427, and use the links below to go to their website in order to see all the awesome STL files that they provide. So go ahead and use the link below to go to my Patreon page, as we will be adding to the list of gratitude gifts throughout this month. So Matthew from DecoQuest did once again reach out to me. I've done a number of videos for his campaigns, and this is his most recent one, and he sent me some sample files, and I chose to print out what's beginning to be fortress walls as well as this guard tower. And we will walk through the Kickstarter because it is live right now, and we will go to the computer after I show you some of these files that I've printed out here. His files are always chock full of details, and in fact it takes quite a while to render because of how detailed they are. And you have the option of either printing them out on a resin printer, but as always I choose to print out on an FDM printer, and so it's a good stress test about whether or not these files print out well. And sure enough, without any supports, you can print these files out on an FDM and they print it out fine. I print everything at 0.2mm height, and I do actually have an included painting tutorial at the end of this video if that would be helpful for you, since I haven't done a painting tutorial in a while. But I'm using the exact same techniques and colors that I have in the past, and so if you already know how to paint that way, you can skip that section. But as you can see here, I really like this set because one of the things that I love are these walls, these spiked walls, and this theme would go well with, with orcs or with goblins or a number of other factions. What you see here are 28mm miniatures that are just guards people, but thematically I think it could fit well even for sci-fi terrain if you wanted to have the orcs having a outpost. These doors do work, and you are able to print out the gate here. These do clip on using the open lock system, the open lock clips, and they clip fairly well and easily. And they paint up really fast because it is mostly wood and a little bit of stone at the bottom. Also included in this campaign are a number of buildings and also a set where you see some stone walls rather than these spiked fences. What I also like is that there's a little raised section right here, a platform where all of the guards can stand in order to be shooting or spearing people on the other side of the wall. So a lot of really cool features. And then this guard tower here is another nice platform to be able to look over the wall and again shoot more arrows at people that are trying to invade. Matthew overall again creates a lot of details for his STL files, and this definitely fits the bill too. And I just really appreciate all the textures and all the details that he's put into this. And I love that it doesn't take forever to print. So each one of these wall sections didn't take very long to print, and so you are able to just build out a pretty well-sized walled fortress if you want to. So let's go ahead and go over to the computer and I can walk you through the Kickstarter campaign. So here we have the Kickstarter page, and already there is $2,100 that has been raised. I think it just posted yesterday, possibly, if I remember correctly, but has a ways to go. Not going to be completing until April 4th. So quite a bit of time for you to be able to jump in on this if you want. Go ahead and watch the video, and that will give you a good sense of what is all available and examples of the prints. Let's go ahead and move down here and look at the options. Obviously, you can just help out, kick in some money to support it, but really it isn't that much. And there are tiered pledges where you can just choose to get the palisade and walls. But of course, I always tell folks, come on down here and get the all-in pledge for $16 US. And you might be wondering why it is sort of pay what you want, but it does seem like there is a minimum, and $16 I think is actually a really good deal. But throw in a couple more euros or dollars if you can, again, just to support him, because I think Matthew comes out with really good files. And this is the early pledge. Let's see, do you save? Or you save $3 if you pledge early, and I'm not entirely sure. Okay, there's 18 hours left to go. So by the time I post this video, this early option will be gone. And then of course there is a merchant license for the all-in. But overall, you know, you can opt just to pick up here just the palisade and the walls, which was what I was showing you, what I printed out. And you can get that for just $3 US, which is really low. So again, I always encourage folks to pitch in with what they can to go a little bit above and beyond, just to provide these artists with funds so that they can continue doing the work that they love doing. There are a number of unlocks, it looks like. And overall, I don't think there is a huge number of files, so I don't think this page is going to be super long. But here you're going to see sort of the full outpost set and what you can get in it. There is a building right here. I opted not to print out the building because I just wanted to print out a sample of these walls and this guard tower, which I think looks super cool. But you can make it obviously as big as you want. And for the guard house, there are separate windows, and there's a curtain that you can put in here to separate these two. He does come with furniture, so you can furnish the insides as well as some scatter terrain. And this is just underneath what it looks like, where you have one open lock clip that goes in each of these sections to hold it together. And it looks like his paint job, pretty similar to mine. He painted his ropes a little bit different color, but overall looks pretty easy to do. Shows you how to use the open lock system. There's a video here if you don't know how to do that. A lot of photos of what you can put inside. I do know that this fire pit is available, along with some of this, again, scatter terrain. And if you take a look at some of my previous videos, especially about LED lighting, I have printed out some of Matthew's stuff by carving out a hole here using Microsoft 3D Builder so that I can use one of those balloon lights, LED balloon lights. Make sure to check out my videos if you don't know what I'm talking about and are interested in putting in lighting in your 3D prints. But here is the village set. And like I mentioned, instead of the sort of palisade walls, you have the stone walls over here. And you have 3 different buildings that comes with it. And again, those walls are modular, and this is what it looks like painted, which I think looks cool. And these are the 3 different shaped houses that are available, along with some scatter terrain. I think this haystack is ingenious because you can actually hide items on the inside of that haystack. And here are the different stretch goals. It looks like there's a vegetable garden has already been unlocked. There's going to be a fence, an L-shaped house, burned houses, which I always like, distressed houses or ruins, and a governor's castle, which is the big one. And then obviously there are add-ons. We just had the Old Libraries Kickstarter happen, I think last month, and had one of the GGGGs be for that. As well, I did a video of the Highlands Fortress, which is a huge print, a huge amount of different STL files that you can get. Yeah, here's an example of that. He also has and I'll provide a link below, My Mini Factory page where you can pick up all of these files now, but it looks like that there is a discount if you get it through this Kickstarter. And then he does have Sci-Fi Terrain, X Terrain. And there is a bunch. You can buy these individually, again on My Mini Factory, or you can pick it up as a bundle. Here is a test print that you can print out just to see, and I can attest that you do not need any support for his files. Subscribe to his newsletter, and then he just has some tips on 3D printing. So there you have it. Hopefully this video was helpful for you to decide whether or not this is a good Kickstarter to jump in on. Again, use all of the links below to go to Matthew's pages, or use the link to go to my Patreon page where you can have the opportunity at the end of this month to be chosen by Bob to receive this printed and painted starter set to get you going on your own fortress. Otherwise, stick around for the painting tutorial, but happy printing, happy painting. We'll see you next time. Right, the first thing I do is just spray prime all of the pieces with this Krylon Ultra Flat Camouflage Brown. And if you can't find this, just pick the darkest and most matte or flat dark brown that you can and spray everything. And because I print all of my prints with black PLA, even if I don't get complete coverage, it looks fine because the black will just keep all of the recesses dark. As opposed to, check out these pieces from Tanaris Adventures. This is originally this beige color, and it's a lot lighter in shade than this. So that's why I like printing out in black as well. If any of this paint ever gets scratched, you don't notice as much when you're printing out with a lighter PLA. So black is my choice. I print out everything in black unless I specifically have a color that I want it to be. So go ahead and spray prime everything. Once it's dry, I didn't remove the support pieces for the open lock edges. You could have chosen to do this before you spray prime, but it doesn't matter either way. Remember to remove all of those support pieces just with these clips. That way these open lock clips can just go in easily. So now we're going to grab some milk chocolate. I use Americana craft paint. It's available at Hobby Lobby or Michael's here in the United States, but basically any kind of sort of medium brown color is going to work. I use a stiff hog's hair brush like this one, and it's just pretty easy. Just rub it across here, and you don't want the paint to be so wet that it covers all of the surface area, but you want a lot of the undercoat to still show through, and that way you maintain the grain of the wood. And these prints, have a lot of great detail, and by just sort of dry brushing like this, it prevents or it highlights all of the great detail that you can find on here. And then these are a little bit harder because they have so many spikes, but just sort of make sure you angle it down so that you can get down into and then approach it, one side and then come at it from the other side so that you're getting all of the wood. And you might be wondering about the stone. Don't worry at this point, because we're going to go over it with gray later. So right now we're just doing the wood first. So it doesn't matter if you get this brown onto the stone, because we're going to cover over it. So this is pretty quick work if you're using a big brush like I am. And there is a lot of paint on here, but still there's quite a bit of the details where the dark brown is not covered up underneath. And that way you still see a lot of the details. And again, see, when I tilt it this way, there isn't much paint coming at it from this side, so I sort of jab at it like this with the brush, and then that puts paint into those sections there. So obviously it doesn't have to be like perfect, as long as you get paint into the sections that you want. And sometimes, you know, because the color doesn't stand out with such a dark brown undercoating, I will do a second coat of this. So let me show you what that looks like. Here's one that I painted earlier, and if I do a second coat, it sort of brightens it up a little bit more and makes it more brown. This step is completely optional. You know, it sort of depends on the color that you're going for, but that sort of makes a little bit of difference with the color. Now if you wanted to, like I've done in some of my other videos, I use honey brown as a lighter dry brush just to make some of the highlights come out a little bit more. But I'm going to forego that because I always feel like fortresses like this, I like a little bit darker and gringier. So this is where I'm just going to forego this, but if you wanted to, you could grab some honey brown to lighten up this, and it goes really well. Now we're going to go ahead with the stone, and I start off with zinc, which is a really dark gray. If you don't have this brand, go ahead and find the darkest gray that you can. And I am using a much smaller hog's hair brush. You can go ahead and use a regular sable brush if you want. Again, I just find the stiffness of these brushes to be really handy. And so all you're doing, and the reason why I'm using such a smaller brush is, as you can see here, I'm being careful not to hit any of the wood, but only the stone. And again, you're not trying to completely cover up all of the stone with the gray, but maintaining some of the dark brown background as shadow and shading. So that's why having a stiff-haired brush like this is helpful, because it guarantees that the paint won't go into all of the cracks and crevices. You can make quick work of this portion. And for the stones here, I mostly focus on the edges, because once we put the cover on the gangway, it's not going to matter. You're not going to be able to really see down here. So I don't really bother too much to paint, you know, all this stuff in here, because it really is going to be covered up and you're not really going to see it that much. Now what I'm going to do is grab some slate gray, which is a medium colored gray, and I'm actually going to mix it with the darker zinc that I have here, just to lighten it up a little bit, because the slate gray by itself is a little bit too bright, so you want to mix between the two colors. And what we're going to do here is just lightly highlight the stone. So you don't want to go over all of the stone that you just covered, but only highlighting some of the edges, like so. So all you're doing is just dry brushing a little bit, again here on the edges. And sort of, that's what you're going for. So super easy. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and do all of the ropes, and I am going to choose Georgia clay. In the past I have used yellow or a mustard yellow to do roping. So it's entirely up to you, but this time I'm going to go ahead and do this more sort of clay reddish color. And this time I am using a small sable brush, so I do have my water here to keep my brush wet. And there is texture on here, and again, you don't want to have the paint go all the way down into the cracks and crevices, because you want that to show the texture of the rope. So I'm careful not to get paint all the way down in there, but instead am just hitting up the tops, the most sections that are sticking up the most, and maintaining some of the texture that way. So pretty much just work at this slowly. This is probably the most detailed work that you're going to do on these pieces, and just be careful making sure that you don't get it on the wood. If you do happen to get it on the wood, I just grab another brush that's handy, wet it down, and sort of use it to erase that piece before it dries. But if it ends up drying, you don't notice it, just take that brown, milk brown again, and go back over it. But overall, this is the effect that you are going for. On the gate, it has really fat cords of rope, and again, that makes it easy. See how the dark brown is still underneath, and you can see the cords of rope in there. So that's what you're going after. So you know what, after finishing all the painting, I think I want a little bit more variation in color. So I am actually grabbing some honey brown and am going to do the tips of these spikes to be a lighter color. Just like you might see in real life, where the bark of the wood is darker. And again, this just creates enough of a little bit of variation, because I thought that the just painting the highlight color onto the ropes would be enough to give that splash of color, but I think actually the tips need to stand out a little bit more, and it just adds that extra variation in color to make it stand out. So this is relatively easy to do. Again, I'm using a wet brush, a larger sable brush to do this, and because again, I don't mind a hard line of color delineation. I'm not trying to blend this into the milk chocolate. So yeah, I think that makes it look better. Now that the painting is done, we're going to go ahead and grab some super glue and glue all of these platforms on here, because really there's no reason why I wouldn't have these platforms on, and I think it can go either way, but I'll go ahead and stick these on like this. As well as the corner pieces. And then let that dry. And then once they are dry, we're going to go ahead and put these open lock clips onto here so that we can clip them together like this. And it's still a little bit loose, but it does hold it together. Also here with the gate, I did stick some PLA just right down here into the holes for the hinges, and it allows it to open and close pretty easily. And I did decide to go ahead and glue this on, although I am keeping the top part of the guard tower unglued for now. If I was keeping it here, I would definitely glue it together, but because I will be shipping this out as one of the GGGGs, I am keeping it unglued. And there are little pegs down here where it sits on top, and then I will also glue this once I'm done painting it.